What is the funniest shit that you saw at school? A couple guys I went to high school with came in one day wearing Spider-Man and Venom costumes under their clothes. During lunch they shed their regular clothes and fought. When I was in 3rd grade, the principal said that we are gonna host a crown party because of the recent event. So in the next 2 days we were all dressed royal and stuff, but then you see the class next to me, they misheard crown for clown, and let me tell you, these kids looked so funny. I kinda felt bad because they might have been embarrassed. But hey, what else can I do? Some kid shat himself whilst wrestling in PE. He denied it ever happened even though everyone saw. About a week later some other lad climbed onto the roof of a house neighboring my school, trying to get our ball back, and found his shit-stained clothes on top of the roof. Instead of leaving them there, the lad kicked them off the roof into the neighbor's drive. The neighbor came to the school and complained after finding shit-covered garments with my school's logo on. We had a whole school assembly about the issue. The kid didn't come forward and admit it was him. The teachers ended up looking at CCTV to find out who the culprit was. Kid who shat himself was most likely seen running naked outside and throwing his shit-covered clothes onto a roof. Lad who climbed onto the roof was caught kicking them into the drive and climbing on the roof. The climber was suspended for a few days. The kid who shat himself was never seen again. I think he may have left due to embarrassment. Poor guy, hope he's doing well, but fuck me, it was hilarious. Back in high school I saw this kid just totally eat it down a staircase of at least 10 steps. Then he got up immediately and ran off screaming, "I'm okay. I'm okay." I was in robotics. Our supervising teacher had gone to his office to get something, and we were getting ready to leave. It was like 7 p.m. and we were all hyped up on pure adrenaline and the smell of gearbox lube. Somehow, a discussion over what exercises to do to get fit started. At the start, it was innocent, stuff like, you cannot only lose weight on your stomach area. You gotta lose the fat between your inner organs first. Okay, but like, how? Why can he do 10 more push-ups than you can? Unsurprisingly, considering we're a bunch of teenagers left alone in an empty classroom, it quickly spiraled into a debate into what would happen if you did lots of squats. Would your butt get smaller and flatter due to the fat loss, or would it get bigger due to muscle gain? A girl, which we'll call C, has her jacket half on, dangling off of one shoulder, and she says, in the most serious voice, "No. You are all wrong. You get sculpted ass." No, hear me out. Have you seen those Greek statues? Sculpted ass. She keeps repeating the phrase, to emphasize her point, and it gradually escalates. Sculpted ass. Sculpted ass. Sculpted ass. Sculpted ass. At that moment, our supervising teacher walks in. The door was open, and the school was basically empty at this point. C has her back to the door, and is busy emphasizing sculpted ass. I look over, and our teacher has the most bewildered, confused yet amused look on his face. It was priceless. I collapsed on the floor due to laughter, and while wheezing I told them, "Mr. P is here." A look of horror crossed C's face after she realized what I was saying, and she turned around and started profusely apologizing, at which point our teacher said, "You guys continue," and sat down in a desk in an optimal viewing spot. It was glorious. I've shared this before, but it still cracks me up thinking about it. Halloween costumes were banned at my high school because of some idiots like 10 years before that dressed up and used it as an excuse to hide their face while they vandalized the school. My senior year, more than half of the class decided that we would still dress up and march into the school together in the morning. We all knew we would be punished right away, but it didn't matter. I stayed up all night making a suit of armor out of metallic duct tape and cardboard, along with a broomstick horse to ride. Here is a picture that ended up in the yearbook. The next day we all gathered in the parking and waited for everyone to show up. People went all out and there were a lot of amazing costumes, and after about 20 minutes of waiting we started our march in. The deans had learned of our plan and were waiting for us right as we entered. They started pulling people aside in groups and taking student IDs to hand out detentions. In my group there was one guy dressed up as an ATM, and when the dean asked for his ID he started making ATM noises and then slipped the ID out through the slot where you would put your debit card in. It was one of the funniest things, and I was so jealous that my costume was not as clever as his. Even though having so many of us participate was pretty awesome, his costume just made that whole event for me. Derek was one of the second tier of popular kids. I didn't know him well, but everyone called him Dogger. Anyway, Dogger was stuffing around in year 7, age 12, on a basketball court. Stands at the free throw line, throws a basketball into the air, and kicks it really fucking hard toward the other end of the court. Everyone goes silent and just watches as this magnificent kick sails through the air and then, swish. Full court shot, from the wrong free throw line and kicked, goes in. We must have fucked up 50 or more basketballs trying to repeat the feat, in a game that became known as Dogger Ball. Basketballs don't like that level of abuse, they developed huge bumps. Dogger himself grew up to be the third best player on the school soccer team, behind two people who started playing professionally. No idea what happened to him after that. A kid got stuck in the toilet and we had to get the teachers to pull him out. Here's the story: he was a small kid, and I'm pretty sure he was playing tag with his friends during lunch break. I was in the bathroom, doing my business, and he came running in with his friends behind him. He ran into the toilet, and as his friends came to tag him he fell into the toilet. He got stuck, his friends needed the teachers to help him get out. I was laughing so hard. Way back in the day, in middle school during our computer science class, one of the guys figured out the copy-paste shortcuts. He was just copy-pasting words into some Word program. It's been a while, I can't remember if it was Notepad or Word itself, as many times as he could. As class was winding down, he had the great idea to save his several tens of thousands of Word document to pick up after the next class. He hit save to the network drive, and while it took an eternity to save, it eventually did. Not 10 minutes into lunch and some teachers came in looking extremely, well, irritated. Apparently the Word document was so enormous that it basically filled the network drive, IDK if they had partitions or whatever, but they said it filled the drive. Also apparently due to this huge file, I think it was like 5 gigs or something, which was colossal at the time. Sorry if I'm off, I don't remember the exact size. Nobody could save anything to that drive. Also apparently every time someone tried to delete said file their computers would crash, and fail to delete the document. Ended up they had to buy a new drive for the school, which at the time was ridiculously expensive. He got in school suspension for a few days. So maybe somewhere in a dusty corner of the basement of that place, or in some landfill or something, is a drive which is nearly inoperable because it's literally filled with words. One kid was walking around and asking kids in his class for a dime because he just 10 cents away from buying something from the vending machine. Then he sees one of his friends walking in hallway and asks him for a dime, and he says, "Yeah, I got a dime, I'll hook you up in the parking after school." He was talking about drugs, but the dean was literally 10 feet. Long story short, they found drugs and a knife in his backpack when they searched him. Not funny for me but funny for classmates. I ate something during lunch in grade 2, and it caused me to feel the urge to shit. At the time I was terrified of shitting in any restroom other than at home for various reasons. So I willed myself to hold it in. 2 classes later, I was feeling really uncomfortable and could not focus on the lesson. As luck would have it, the teacher called upon me to write the answer to a question on the board. I tried refusing, but the teacher wouldn't have it, and she grabbed my wrist and yanked me out of my chair. An explosive diarrhea situation occurred, and since I was wearing shorts, the shit ran down my legs and onto the floor. I had to transfer to a new school the next year to escape bullying. In 9th grade, when I was in biology class, one of my table mates got out one of those soda pellet candies and crushed it with his ID card into dust. Then he snorted it, and after a few seconds, he started sneezing a lot. I looked at my teacher and she looked disgusted before telling my table mate off and going back into the lesson. It was hilarious. Once in drama club we were rehearsing for the spring musical, Thoroughly Modern Millie, and the set crew left the backstage door open so they could get in and out quick and easy, and a wasp got in while the girls playing Millie, Ms. Mears, and Dorothy were going through a scene. The scene broke as soon as they saw the wasp. One of them ran off the stage, one girl fell over and just laid there, all of them were screaming. Eventually the student director came over with hairspray to kill the wasp. In high school some students had made a meme account that was just about the school, making fun of teachers etc. So one day it was gonna snow real hard and the school didn't want to let us go home before it was gonna snow, so one of the students announced on the meme page we were gonna protest that, and like 200 people ended up throwing mosh pits in the small ass hallway next to the principal's office, and it worked. Best day of my life. Oh, it's gotta be the one time this girl in my class, a real know-it-all smartass, but everyone loved her. She was guaranteed to get a teacher off topic, dared our teacher to throw a binder clip at her. It directly related to the lesson as we were learning about how our actions had no consequences. The class was existentialism and the teacher was a Dead Poets Society ripoff. She continued to egg him on for the entire class before he finally agrees. She stands up straight in the center of the class, and we're all seated in a U shape around her. My teacher winds up and absolutely hurls the binder clip at her, missing by a bare inch and slamming the quietest, sweetest girl in class directly in the face. Everyone stops, shocked for a second before the quiet girl loudly proclaims, "Your aim fucking sucks." You could tell it definitely hurt her, but we all busted out laughing. She was a great sport about it and I don't think I had even heard her speak, let alone yell a swear. To this day it's one of my favorite stories. Of course our teacher profusely apologized and we would casually bring it up as an inside joke between anyone in the class. Interestingly enough, it kind of all brought us together as it was the first week of our senior year. That class became one of my absolute favorites. Two guys got into a fist fight in the cafeteria. But they're pretty scrawny and terrible fighters, so it was comical for the people watching. Instead of throwing fists, they're slapping each other and had each other in a headlock. People were throwing dollar bills at them. One of the spectators grabbed a couple scrunchies and started putting them in the fighter's hair. There was another fight. This one was between two girls. One girl pinned the other girls and started pulling out her weave and tossing them around. People were picking the hair extensions. Throughout the day you can see people wearing them. English class, sophomore year of high school. Our teacher was infamous for taking months off for personal reasons, had issues with alcohol, depression. So he was present for about 6 weeks of the school year and then we got a sub. Actually a few of them, but one in particular is in the story. We'll call him Mr. P. I liked Mr. P. He had a good sense of humor, he was reasonable, level-headed and was a retired English teacher, so he knew what he was doing and actually taught, instead of just playing movie or something. He was also a retired football coach, which made him a bit more relaxed in a class setting, but less tolerant to annoyances. Like Stu, not actual name. Stu was your typical class clown. Loud, obnoxious, did everything for a laugh. To his defense, though, he was often pretty funny. Stu would have absolute field days with substitutes, claiming the teacher told him it's fine to sleep during class, getting up and just walking out of class, blurting out randomness, you name it. He just wanted to break them down as much as he could. Mr. P wasn't about that bullshit. We all learned real quick that Stu's antics would not get very far. Well, except for Stu. I'm not sure what happened this day, but I think it was just a built-up frustration with the past few weeks of Stu-ness, and Mr. P had enough. On multiple occasions Mr. P had jokingly threatened Stu that he would lock him in a closet if he didn't shut up, but no one took him seriously. It was during a popcorn reading, and after a particularly obnoxious interruption, Mr. P stopped the reading, grabbed his keys, stared Stu in the eyes and said, "Stu, that was your last one. Step into the hall, please." As we all were, Stu was confused and refused to follow him out into the hall at first. After some back and forth, Stu eventually followed him out in the hall. As he was walking out the door, you could hear him plead, "You're not actually locking me in a closet, are you?" Mr. P came back in, without Stu, and continued with the class. Right as the bell rang, Mr. P walked out of the class with us, went over to the nearest mechanical closet and released Stu from his holding cell. He couldn't have looked more pissed/defeated if he tried. And it was fantastic. I don't think this is the hardest I've laughed, but it's definitely up there. PE both classes, about 50 kids, sitting on benches along both sides of the gym. Teachers want to do a basketball demonstration, so they pick 3 kids at random. They're all in the middle of the gym, doing basketball, and there's a growing undercurrent of whispered words and stifled giggles. My mate nudges me with his elbow and goes, "Kid, has a bone on." And he does, a full-on tent pole. By this point the giggling had gotten pretty loud. Suddenly, one of the bad kids jumps up and screams, "Ugh, he's got a bone on." Entire gym bursts into gales of laughter. Even the teachers were laughing behind their hands. One of them goes over to the kid and walks him out of the gym. Same kid also shit in the pool. Also, during a sex ed thing, the teacher asked us guys if we knew what happened when girls get excited. We were all thinking the same thing and looked around at each other, until someone finally put their hand up and said, "Miss, they get a wide on." It was my senior year of football. Before practice, some players were on specialty teams, meanwhile the linemen were bored on the sideline. We had this one lineman/backer who transferred from one of our rival schools and was arrogant AF. He wasn't that bad, but he really pissed some of us off. He was called over to the specialty teams practice. My buddy wanted to practice his punt because we had nothing better to do. He picked up a ball, dropped with ease and a strong ass punt. The ball went flying and nailed that newcomer dead in the face. We all shit ourselves laughing. Meanwhile my dumbass nearly takes out a coach, the one who hated me the most.